Everybody, welcome back to another Quick Games video, and today I will be teaching you how to make a Visual Studio project for C++ and how to make your first program. So these steps are very different based on which operating system you're running on, whether you're on Linux, Mac, or Windows. I'll be doing my videos in Windows. I've done every single video on my channel in Windows. So if you're on another platform and you want to use something like Visual Studio Code, which is another program like Visual Studio, then search up another tutorial, because this is going to be a Visual Studio tutorial. So the first thing before we actually create a new project is make sure that you have this thing. Go to Visual Studio Installer and go to Modify, and make sure that you have desktop development with C++. And if you want to, and there's these all these packages that you can install. For example, I have .NET and C# development, game development with Unity, game development with C++. So there's all these packages. I personally recommend, if you want to go with game development, you should do game development with C++. So yeah, make sure you have desktop though for this tutorial. So create a new project, and usually you shouldn't have recent project templates. It should be in here. Just type in C++. You should see empty project. Okay, so just do empty project, and I will be storing this in my dev folder. You can store it wherever you want. I'm going to be calling this project tutorial CPP, which is the it's like the abbreviation for C++. CPP. Okay, click create, and that should create a Visual Studio project in that directory. Boom. So if you've never used an IDE before at all, this may look very scary. How do you even get started? But basically all you need to look at is the Solution Explorer and the output. Everything else is not really important. I mean, this, and this is kind of important later on. This is the button that actually runs your program, and this is whether you're building for 64-bit or 32-bit. Or x86. But if you don't know anything about computers, you might be like, why do we need to choose? I'm just saying, go with 64-bit, because every single computer pretty much is 64-bit nowadays. So just have it on 64. It can be on debug. And make sure you see that play button. So yeah, the two things you need to mainly look at is Solution Explorer and output. Output tells you if your program successfully builded. So every C++ program needs to be built. I might make another video on how compilers do stuff, what they are. But yeah, basically what you do is your code is just a text file. And you put your code through a compiler, and that compiler takes your just text and converts it to code that the computer can actually read. So the output tells you if there's any errors in the code. So let's get started by actually making a file and start coding. So you can see source files right here. Just right click on here, go to add, and you should see new item. Just click new item. Make sure you're under Visual C++. Out of all these, do Visual C++. And make sure you have C++ file. I will name this program.cpp. It's the abbreviation for it. Okay, so now we're in our file, and we can actually start programming. So let me show you, and if you were watching the last tutorial, you might have, I said that your program does not run if you do not have a main function. So let's say we hit the run button with nothing, right? You can see there are build errors. It said error. It said error LNK 2019 unresolved symbol main. So this is very, very cryptic. Even for a programmer, this is cryptic. But basically what it's saying is there's no main function. So we need to create one. So we need to say, if you're watching the last tutorial, this is how you make a main function. Type int main, and then do parentheses. You have to do these two parentheses. And then you can, many different programmers have their own preferences. Some people like to hit enter, curly brace, enter, like that. Or some people like just space, curly brace, enter. You can do whichever one you like. I'll do this. And once you have an int main, you need to tell the program when it should stop. You type in return 0, so you do return 0 to signal the end of the program. So C++ code runs from top to bottom. Okay, so if you have some code under return 0, like I type in add 5 plus 5 or something like that, it just simply won't run, because we're telling the program to stop itself before we're actually running this code. So we need to make sure that return 0 is after everything in our program. So we can do add 5 plus 5, and then it will actually run 5 plus 5. Something to also note is that every single line of code ends with a semicolon in C++. This is to indicate the end of your line. So make sure that you have a semicolon at the end of return 0. So if we hit the play button, you should see it will successfully build and run our program. Now our program isn't doing anything because this is the most basic program you can possibly make in C++, but it works because we have an int main and it is returning 0. Okay, so navigate to the directory of your project. You should see a SLN file, which is your Visual Studio solution. If you double click this, Visual Studio will open up your project. You should see x64 tutorial CPP. This is where our actual program is. This is where our source code is. Source code is basically just meaning the text version of your code. That's all source code means. So you see there's also another x64 folder in here, but I'll explain what that one is for later. But the main one is this one. Go into here, you should see debug, and you should see an exe file. So if you double click the exe, you can see, you see how it unfocuses for 1 second? So what we can do is open up a CMD window by clicking in here and type in CMD. And this will open command prompt, and we can just run tutorial cpp.exe. So that's just running the exe. You can see it runs, but nothing happens because we didn't write any code for it to do. So that's the most basic program you can actually make in C++. Another thing to mention is that as long as you have semicolons and these angle brackets and everything, you don't have to have any of these enters. Like, you don't have to click enter and everything. So let me show you what I mean. You could do this. You could do it all in one line. It does not matter. And I think I explained this in the past tutorial. It does not matter. You could also do it like this, where there's no spaces at all. This code's also valid. C++ does not recognize spaces or indentations. That's called white space in programming. So white space is just all that. So I'll make it actually half readable by making the angle brackets like that. And this is the standard format for C++ programs. So there you go. That's your very, very first program in C++. It does nothing, but it's a program. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!